Everybody!
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, I love that song. We first started singing that song in Jeff White's office every time an abortion clinic would close. It was usually about once every 4 or 5 years, but it got increasingly more frequent, and it's one of my favorite songs, and I really appreciate you spinning it for us. You know, Jeff, you should raise the bar just a little bit. I mean, really, finding someone prettier than you? That's really not that hard. And by the way, when you see Jeff White with a bullhorn, doesn't that remind you of things like, you know, burger and fries? Coffee and donuts? I mean, they just go together. I think he had one in the womb. That's what Walter Hoy said. Like if there was a sonogram back there, you know, in the Chisel and Stone Age, you know, you'd be having a bullhorn like this. Well, folks, I'm really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, to be here with y'all. I wanted to talk a lot about kind of shifting our paradigm. And we need to look at things that work and throw the things out that don't work. And we also need to look at what the measure of our success is, right? I mean, if you're trying to get to, say, Hawaii, and you're walking someplace in the Rocky Mountains, and you're trying to get to Hawaii from here, you might be going the wrong direction, right? And you might want to turn around, charter a boat, a plane, something, because you're going the wrong direction. You need to go west and not east. And so we need to measure our successes here in the pro-life movement. And I believe that there are many good things that we can do in the pro-life movement. We can do Facebook ads, we can look at YouTube videos, we can network, we can have conferences, and those are wonderful and they're exciting and they're necessary to promote the goodwill and the cause of the pro-life movement. But really the only way to measure success in the pro-life movement are 3 things. It's babies saved, abortion mills closed, and abortionists prosecuted. That is the measure of success. And if we don't measure success in these 3 things, my friends, we are not winning. We're lying to ourselves. We're whistling past the graveyard. We can only measure true success in the number of babies saved. And that's the things I want to talk to you about today, because I believe we are winning, and there's demonstrable evidence proving we're winning. And I think at the end of this presentation, even the most hardcore pro-life activists who've been in the movement forever are going to say, wow, even I didn't know that. In fact, I didn't know it until just a couple of years ago when we started to quantify the things that the pro-life movement has accomplished over the past several years. So, to be a little bit nostalgic, I want to go to our premise. The bottom line is, when abortion mills close, babies are saved. I want you to say it with me. When abortion mills close, babies are saved. And that's the measure of our success, isn't it? Here's our thesis today. Our thesis is this: we can close every abortion mill now. Right now, we can close every abortion mill with the laws we currently have on the books. The only thing we lack is prosecution. We need to get these turkeys behind bars. Now, before I tell you where we are, we have to use a measuring stick. We have to know where we came from. And I want to go back to 1991. And 1991 was really the golden age of abortion, or I should say the bloodiest age, the reddest age of abortion. In 1991, there were 2,176 abortion mills in the United States. Almost every OB/GYN doctor, I almost slipped, abortionist would be doing abortions. 1.6 million abortions were done every single year. Like I said, it was the peak of abortion services in America, and less than 30% of the American people self-identified as pro-life. Very few crisis pregnancy centers. In fact, you could hardly find them. It was truly, as I said, the bloodiest age of the abortion industry. But where have we come in the 20 years? We kind of have a brand new paradigm. We have a new philosophy. America is starting to look at abortion in a brand new way. In fact, America is starting to analyze this great experiment that she's had with abortion. And she said, I think we've come to the wrong conclusion. Abortion is not good for America. It's not a good choice. The old paradigm, when Jeff and I would go to court, is the abortion distortion. If you were pro-life, Michael, you're guilty. If you were doing anything pro-life, you were guilty. If you tried to sue an abortionist, you couldn't win. If they sued you, it didn't matter what they said, you lost. But there's a new political climate, and that is that there are bad abortionists. No longer can abortionists walk on water. They are bad abortionists, and they're beginning to be prosecuted. The new normal is clear. Abortions are bad. Abortionists are bad. They break the law. Abortionists should be jailed, and abortion mills should be closed down forever. I remember a story back in San Diego. It was about 20 years ago. An abortionist had actually killed a woman on the operating room table, didn't know what to do with her, so he put her in the back of his car in a trunk and took her out to East County, San Diego, and dumped the body. Well, the authorities found out who she was, how she had gotten there, and who had done the crime. The district attorney failed to prosecute this abortionist because he was an abortionist. They could literally do no wrong. Today, that abortionist would go to jail, and the pro-life movement is at such a spot in history that we would make sure that they would go to jail. But these are what I call the gatekeepers of the abortion industry. They've broken down into two very distinct entities. They're the courts and the bureaucrats. These are the people that are keeping abortion alive and well in America, or keeping it as dead as it can be. The courts and the bureaucrats, their district attorneys, their attorneys general, their medical boards, sometimes their health boards, environmental quality boards, and of course, our great judicial system. We're working on, even though we're winning the public opinion polls, if you look at the last election cycle, 600 seats, state house seats, went from radical pro-abortion candidates to pro-life candidates sitting in those seats. In 2000, that's huge. I think 2011 is going to go down as one of those watershed moments. 20 years from 1991 to 2011, it's going to be looked at in history as a turning point. This year, 480 brand new pieces of pro-life legislation were introduced just this year alone. Now, they weren't all passed, but it was a historic number. 480 laws were introduced this year alone. In Kansas, we passed clinic regulations. There were 3 abortion mills that would close just with these clinic regulation laws. But who stopped them? A court. One single federal judge appointed by Bill Clinton. We defunded Planned Parenthood. Every single dime of Planned Parenthood was taken away and actually given to real women's health centers that would really help women. But one judge said it broke the First Amendment rights of Planned Parenthood, and they restored their funding. The courts and the bureaucrats, my friends, are the gatekeepers of the abortion industry, and they're the ones that we need to topple. That's the next new battleground in the fight for abortion, against abortion rights. Now, the next slide are 2 of my favorite perps. These are my 2 favorite perps. Maybe Jeff and everybody will remember these guys. Let's see if this laser works. You see the laser? I probably shouldn't put a laser in an abortionist's head, should I? Okay. The first one is Bruce Steer. Bruce Steer, back in the early 90s, killed Sharon Hamplin not too far from here in Moreno Valley. He was too busy, or too urgent of business, he wanted to catch a plane to go back to San Francisco, and he perforated her uterus, and she bled to death somewhere between Moreno Valley and the Inland Empire, with her son on her lap. He served 6 months in jail for manslaughter. He lost his license, and he'll never do another abortion. The reason I bring him up is because there were days when we used to be behind bars. Remember that, Mike? We would be wearing the orange jumpsuits. I had the privilege of speaking with Mr. Steer for a half an hour at the San Bernardino jail, except he was wearing the orange jumpsuit this time. He was wearing the jumpsuit. That's the new norm. That's the new norm. The other guy is Brian Finkel of Arizona fame. Brian Finkel did 20% of all the abortions in Arizona. 20% of them. And at the end of his trial, over 109 women had come forward to talk about how he had physically abused them. And an interesting story, like all abortionists, they appeal their convictions, right? I think he's serving 27 years to life. Well, an interesting story was on the appeal, his roommate, his cellmate, came forward and testified before the appellate board and said, you know, I'm a bad guy.